الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم لك الحمد حمدا سرمدا أبدا لا انقطاع له ولا نفاذ، ولك ينبغي وإليك ينتهي. ثم الصلاة والتحية والإكرام على رسوله وحبيبه سيد الأولين وخاتم المرسلين محمد وعلى آله المعصومين وصحبه المنتجبين. اللهم صل على محمد. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. Those who pray and ask Allah or plead to Allah, saying, Our Lord, bless us with pious spouses and offspring, who will be the joy of our hearts and make us a model for the righteous members of the community. A verse in Surah Furqan, verse number 74. If we reflect a little bit about 5 or 6 verses before this verse, so around verse number 64, 65 until it gets to 75, the context for this verse becomes clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during these 10 ayat and passages, tries to make a contrast between those who on the day of judgment will be resurrected on the right path and they will go straight rewarded, and those who will go astray and have to face the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are 3 or 4 verses, one after the other, particularly for those that ultimately they are going to be resurrected as pious. One of them is this: وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. These are people that ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them pious spouses as well as children, that they are going to be joy to our heart, to their heart and to their soul. There's a little bit of explanation here that I need to give and then go return to our theme or topics. Under what condition our future generation, children, they are going to be the joy to our heart and to our soul? According, again, if we return to the Holy Quran, the only way they become joy to our heart and our soul is when they stand or they stay on the right path and practice the moral principles that we adhere to, if we adhere to. And they become literally some kind of a copy, if not better than us. How they succeed depends on the planning that we have for them, which is the subject for, inshallah, tomorrow night. Which in practice, the bearing of a child and rearing of a child, that they become ultimately the joy to our heart, particularly after we pass away. They can be the joy to our heart here and mind, but then when we pass, they might deviate and lead to crisis. If then we have been the cause of the problem, we haven't done our duty properly, and the children have gone astray, they will not be asked, we will be asked. You as a father, you as a mother, you have been given the responsibility. You knew your responsibility right from the beginning. You didn't plan for the future of the children. But this is something that, inshallah, we would do tomorrow. I began, although the question that was posed by the sisters was to focus on how to bring up children, which means focusing on bearing and rearing of children. These are the two. But I couldn't go straight into the bearing and rearing of the children without indicating that there are what we call prerequisite conditions that we need to fulfill before we get to the point of having children. And that was the moment of what we begin to search for future spouses. I mentioned that searching for, it's a critical juncture in our life. That searching for future partners is not just searching for a beauty or humor or something else. Technically, we are searching about a partner that creates with us, and together we can create our own family chapters, the father or the mother to our children, and the one that stand fast with us in the crisis that life throws at us, the curveballs, so to speak. If one of the partner does not have the necessary prerequisite to stand still and istiqama, as we say, then naturally we have a problem. The project of parenthood is not going to succeed. You see this when there is fundamental difference between the parents vis-a-vis ideology and religion. Let's say the mother is Christian, the father is Muslim. At the beginning, they say, well, we have agreed on everything. When the child gets to the age of puberty and so on, the mother says, let's go to the mosque, or the father says, let's go to the mosque. The mother says, it's the church. And I have seen in my life people, in my own experience, during the days that at the University of Denver, when I was writing my dissertation, my advisor was the head of the advisory board was a Professor Claude Destray, French origin, and married to an American lady who was Episcopalian, Christian Episcopalian. He was Buddhist. So occasionally after our discussion regarding my writing and question that he had, I used to ask him about the relationship because I wanted to know how they work. Ibrahim, at this stage, there is no problem. I came over here and then I received a text message from him. He said, Ibrahim, we have a problem. What is it? 3 boys, one after the other. So let us assume 13, 14, 15. We have a problem. What is it? Unfortunately, and he actually put it on Facebook. Unfortunately, we have a crisis with our children. When they grew to an age that they now beginning to develop themselves, the mother is trying to pull them to Episcopalian church. The father says, no, this is, leave them free, and because ultimately they have to decide for themselves. 3 boys, both of them Harvard graduate, and both of them are highly paid professors within the University of Denver. 3 boys, 3 of them turn out to be drug addicts. Because the family foundation is not stable. Why? The parents were not able to come up with some kind of a plan that right from the start, how do we deal with these children as they grow and they have an identity for themselves? There are huge literatures these days about the adolescent crisis and the sense of insecurity. So we have to make sure at that particular time to find out someone that our choice will be on piety, good character, decency, good morals, and they are prepared to work with us to build the spiritual life, as I indicated last night. The goal of marriage is not this world. The goal of marriage is to create an environment in which the hadith says you're going to have protect half of your deen, and with the other half you have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect it. Taqwa, it means that the goal, marriage is an spiritual institution. Both parties are supposed to work together that to build the spiritual life, and ultimately the children will come out within such an environment. If spirituality is absent, then we have a problem. Unfortunately, for those that are residing in the West, finding appropriate match who shares with us the religious commitment is challenging. And there are a number of reasons for it. The rise of the social media has distorted the concept of Islamic marriage and reduced it to purely a cultural issue. The issue of spirituality, within it, the fact that this is a sunnah, and as sunnah, we are submitting to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is gone. It becomes some kind of a physical reaction or cultural issue that, beyond nothing beyond anybody else. There are some other factors as well. Limited social networking. The families are not connected with each other, so that we will be able to find somebody suitable within the network, whether Pakistanis, Iraqis, Iranians, or anything else. Cultural differences leads to, and the third one, a scarcity of what we call practicing Muslims. Very hardly you come up with Muslims these days that really practice. They pray. Most of the Muslims in this country, whether Shia or whether Sunnis, they reserve the right to choose for themselves what to practice, what not to practice. As the verse says, نؤمن ببعض ونكفر ببعض. Allah has made decision, an idea, and I have a view. That's how we behave. Allah thinks somewhere, and I think differently. That kind of thing, a scarcity of practicing Muslims, leads to what? Leads to two things, and both of them are damaging. Either somebody, because of all these limitations, you have to reduce your expectation and come up with something that is workable within the environment that you live in. I was looking for piety, I don't get it. Well, let's leave the piety out. Good character, I can negotiate around here. And decency and good morals, well, inshallah, I will build them. Well, I work with them and they become this way. Long spiritual life is not necessary. We are living in the United States, beginning of the 21st century. One thing I have to remind everyone, from my experience with the number of divorces and so on that I have to deal with, and I still have to deal with, if the critical conditions are absent, the idea that I'm going to work with it and build it is not going to happen. If my wife or a future wife doesn't pray or doesn't fast, or future husband doesn't care about faith, the idea that I would work with them and change their behavior and turn them into pure Muslims is not going to. You become engaged with the nitty-gritty part of life, the material life. Before you know it, he hasn't changed anything. You have changed quite a lot. So the crisis that we have either is going to lead to the reduction of the dropping of one's standard, or what? If we can't see anything, you go to dating apps, swipe, and you are paired with some strange couple, with some strange individuals, and that's your husband for the future. Leading to what? These kind of marriages leading to 50% divorce rate that we have now in our society. A wife or a husband that you find in a coffee shop over a cup of coffee, without understanding their background, without understanding who they are, without understanding the family that they have grown into, the character, moral character of the parents. And this was something the so-called the matchmakers within our society used to check. They used to go around, okay, the expectation from the boy is this, the expectation from the girl. Now this matchmaker has to go around between the community and find somebody suitable. The background, the family, they would ask the shopkeepers, they would go to the mosque, ask the Maulana, what do you think about these people? Do they come to the mosque? They don't come to the mosque. They even go to their work environment to see when they come out and go in. But dating apps is none of those. A quick, snappy pairing of with a stranger, and you think you've got the best. That's the fundamental problem that we have in the West. So hardly anyone these days looks at marriage as a sunnah that is deeply linked with one's faith. You are submitting to the command of Allah because we have a hadith from Ahlul Bayt that encouraging us to marry because it protects us from the crisis that we are going to deal with. Just a mechanical outward practice. I am 25, I have an urge, and I need to get married. Without thinking whether I'm ready for it or not. I'm going to focus on this in a minute. So until we develop a comprehensive curriculum that we teach our children from their young age to adulthood, to guide them on how to be a potential spouse according to Islam, here is some critical points that you need to bear in mind, particularly parents. You have young children or just about past their teens and you want to marry them, which in some cultures exist. Most of the days, these days, the boys and girls, they simply don't want to talk to their parents about what they want. They straight away either the college or coffee shop or somewhere else, online, Facebook or something, and they have the partner. And then they bring it to the house, bring him to the house or her to the house, and you say, good Lord, how on earth they made such a choice? What were they thinking? They must have been sniffing something. Because otherwise, under normal circumstance, you are coming out of this unique environment, a family that is resting on morality and moral issue and religious issue, and your son or your daughter, they go and find out somebody obscure, peculiar, that simply does not fit within the dynamics of the house. What is it? So we have to, when we come to search for partner, there is a process, but if you are going to do it yourself as an individual, think about this. And if parents want to do it, think about this. Number one, are we ready for the marriage? First question. Before I start searching whether X, Y, or Z or something else, ask ourselves first, are we ready for it? How do I establish? Here are some signs that we are not ready for marriage. Not we are ready. We are not ready. Number one, do you know how to take care of yourself? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If your socks have to be picked up by your mom, if your clothes that you throw around has to be picked up by your sister, if you are not prepared even to change anything, and you stink like anything, and then you want to go and get married. So if you are unable to look after yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you are not ready for marriage, because marriage is going to test all of these components in your life. It's going to test your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. Number two, do you know the purpose of marriage? Why are you getting married? It's just physical attraction, or there is something else? The objective of marriage is quite clear to you. If you are able to maintain your sense of sanity without breaking down, because you are a strong character, you know you can do it, you've gone through hell, at least one step closer. Do you know the purpose of marriage and the relationship between health of the society with the health of the marriage? A healthy marriage ultimately leads to a healthy society. Do you value yourself, or you are looking for some kind of a white knight in a shining armor to come and pick you up and fix your crisis in your life? because you are unable to do it yourself? Do you value yourself? And do you define yourself, your worth, on external or material issues? The best laptop, the best gadget phones. This is what defines you. Yves Saint Laurent glasses. What about bags that $5,000 each? If this is your definition, then you are not, unfortunately, you are not ready for marriage. If the character of a person is defined by the material and the gadget and the external factors, they are not ready for marriage. If they are searching for the fulfillment of the material life, life is a roller coaster. One day you have the material, one day you don't. If purely the material is the one that attracts you, or the physical reality, you're not going to succeed. Can you distinguish between right and wrong in your life before you get married? You've gone through crisis. Can you distinguish between what is right and wrong? If you cannot, don't go through it. No self-esteem. You allow others to walk over you. Don't go through marriage. Not happy in their life right now, and then they are looking for somebody else to come in and take them out. How many times I have a program, premarital counseling for people that don't want to get married. I say, I will not conduct or officiate the marriage unless you go through the pre-counseling. And when you sit with them and you try to establish, there are some standard questions that you give each independent of the other, and you tell them to write down your answer. Then you read between the line. Most of the time, the husband is looking, or future husband, looking for a mother to pamper him, and the wife is looking for some kind of a shining armor to come and fix her life. If you are that type of an individual, don't go through it, because the marriage is not going to last. Do you run away from conflict? Life, as I said, is full of crises, one way or the other. There are those that as soon as there is some kind of conflict in their life, they make a run for it, rather than stand still and face it and say, okay, let's sit down together, husband and wife, and resolve this issue. Running away, for how long you are going to run in your life? You don't respect others. Inherently, you are rude, disrespectful to your parents, disrespectful to your family. Naturally, you're going to be disrespectful to others, including your husband. Immediately, he or she or wife, the other party is going to react. So, what's going on? The basic respect for your partner is not there, and the result is very, very quick, a clash. Particularly if the other party wants to be respectful, wants to be moral, wants to behave ethically, but one party lacks all these fundamental principles. This is recently was added to the list of questions by counselors. Are you addicted to social media and the number of hours that you spend on this gadget? Because the number of hours that you spend on that gadget is the number of hours that you deprived your partner from what we call qualitative time that we should spend together. I had divorce of a couple that the husband, as soon as he came in from work, straight downstairs, playing what? This, what they call them? Games. Yes. Whatever it's called, from nearly 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning. And the wife had to stay by herself upstairs. If you are addicted, this time is going to be taken away. So they calculate, they say how many hours a day do you spend on these public media or social media? Say 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours. They deduct these hours from the productive time between the families, and then they calculate the rate of success or failure based on them. Particularly at the early part of marriage, that you are by yourself and you're supposed to create that chemical bonding that between the two parties. If at the early part you remove that critical time, you really haven't bonded together. And because there is no bonding, at the first crisis that come up, the other person says, look, I'm out. So these are issues that you really need to pay attention to. Marriage, from an Islamic point of view, is a holy institution. Because ultimately it's supposed to produce an environment and lead to an environment, a spiritual environment, that both husbands and wife progress together and move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't have such a relationship, then fundamentally there is something wrong with it. And naturally, if the foundation is not there, you cannot have children and expect what the verse talks about, some kind of a joy to our heart and eyes. Is not going to be there. Yes, you're going to have children. They grow physically, like mushroom. If you just leave something mushroom, they grow like that. But these are not going to be the ultimate khalaf al-salih that Islam wants from us. That would look at how they think about parents and behave well towards them. Remember, in the past, I talked about the 3 various ways that we can attain longevity and long life. One of them is to be a scholar and bring up children. Bring up students. You teach your students, and they will respect. May God bless the professor, or so and so. That's one way. Constantly remember. The other one is to have a social institution like this one, and people, they go after we have passed away, other people will come and use it, and they say, may God bless those who instituted this. The third, the most critical one, is to have khalaf al-salih. Khalaf al-salih are these younger children or teenagers, if they were brought up properly and they become wary of their moral and ethical responsibility, not only towards themselves in this life, but for the parents in the hereafter. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's inshallah tomorrow night I will focus only on the fact, how do we, in the light of the crisis that we have and we face in our society, what is the bearing and the rearing of children is going to impose on us. Certainly, we have a number of ahadith that talk about bringing up children. The right, go and read the book of Right of Imam Sajjad, salawatullah salam alayhi, that says, and you see sections about the right of parents on children, and you see the same right of children over parents and how to behave. You can't, these two go together. There are a number of ahadith in Nahj al-Balagha. There are other ahadith clearly stipulating how to go about bringing up children. But these ahadith primarily for a different environment. As I said last night, now we have to bring these ahadith into our life and think about how do we play around with these variables that exist outside and make our children at least have the basic understanding of the faith and the reserve, the moral and the ethical reserve to tap into when they are confronted with some kind of crisis. Inshallah. رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا. Oh Lord, don't punish us if we forget or if we go astray. And as I said, we have tonight is the night of the 27th, is a possibility, although weak, but still is nothing to stop us from at least doing some of the a'mals during this night, recitation of Quran and others, and Tawbah in particular. May Allah accept our du'as, Sawm, and recite dua for your parents, for the soul of your the deceased one, inshallah. And we see what happens. There are only 3 nights left from this month. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
اللهم صل على